Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Watershed Alumni Career Panel for Business Management. So my name is Anne-Marie Magnus, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Washington College. And before we begin, I want to review some housekeeping items. So both of your cameras and microphones are turned off for this evening's event. However, we will be taking live questions during this panel, so please utilize the Q&A box. You don't have to wait till the end at all. Please go ahead and submit any questions you have. And you are, if we are unable to answer all of your questions this evening, your admissions counselor will be following up later this week as long as we have a name associated with your question. So I will now go ahead and let our lovely panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Trish Langley. I came to Washington College from Monmouth County, New Jersey, class of 2016, currently living in Baltimore, working for T. Rowe Price as an intermediary sales associate.
Hey everyone, my name's Audrey Utchin. I am from the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm calling in from tonight. I was a business major. I graduated in 2017, so 4 years ago. And I went to grad school, then returned back to the Bay Area here in California. And I'm currently working at Asana as a deal desk strategic analyst.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ryan Bankert, class of 2013. I'm originally from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but I live in Baltimore, Maryland right now, and I work at Stanley Black & Decker as a senior marketing manager.
Awesome. So a huge thank you to our panelists tonight. And I'll actually go ahead and get us started with a couple of questions. So our first question, can you tell us about your current job and what is your day-to-day like and how did you find it?
It's hard to always put this in a condensed version, so I'll do my best here. So an intermediary sales associate at T. Rowe Price is kind of like the third leg of what we call institutional sales in investing. So we work with a handful of clients, and when I say clients, I mean financial advisors. So what our responsibility is as a bottom line is just kind of creating portfolios using T. Rowe Price products for financial advisors. I've been with the firm for about 5 years now, so it's actually my first job right out of college. So I'm very, very lucky to have been granted that opportunity as a 22-year-old, I think is how old I was when I graduated. So being there for 5 years, I'm definitely very lucky to have it. It's a great community, just like Washington College was. I actually found it, interestingly enough, through a friend of mine that is not from Washington College, but luckily for me, with T. Rowe Price being a Baltimore born and bred company, the Washington College community is actually very, very apparent there. So that's something that has definitely kept me around for a lot longer.
So Asana is a workplace management software that kind of helps companies become more efficient and helps teams work together more effectively. I've actually only been at the company for 2 weeks. It's a brand new job for me. But the role as a deal desk is very much the math behind sales and is helping our sales team go out, sell the product to customers in a profitable way that can make sure the company makes money. Ultimately in business, that's the end goal, right? Is to have a profitable business that contributes to your community and your employees. And so the deal desk is a really strategic team within the finance organization that collaborates together with finance, legal, sales, making sure we're having contracts that are beneficial for both us and our customers. So how I found the job was actually through LinkedIn, but how I was able to secure the job was a shared bonding experience with my hiring manager, who actually worked for the same company that I was leaving from, which was Western Digital. So we had a bonding experience there that really helped me secure the position. And I'm really excited to see what my future at my new company holds.
So, as I mentioned, I'm a senior marketing manager at Stanley Black & Decker. My day-to-day really looks like my sole focus is to make sure customers, meaning distributors, pretty much any customer that's not Home Depot, Lowe's, or Amazon.com. My goal is to make sure that those customers have a desire to stock the Walt branded power tools, and that those customers also have a really easy time selling it to contractors who are using our tools on professional job sites. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm managing pricing. I'm coming up with promotions that incentivize people to buy our tools. It's a very active role, and I love it. I love working with the sales team on a daily basis, and I get to attend customer meetings when necessary to talk through strategies with some of these big, large customers that are buying our tools. I was very fortunate that Stanley Black & Decker and Washington College are very well connected. My senior year, Stanley Black & Decker was interviewing on campus, so I had the ability to just walk over to the Career Center and have my first interview. And obviously that interview went well enough that, a couple of interviews down the road, I ended up getting a job offer, and I've been with Stanley Black & Decker since 2013. So 8 years going on strong, and I love it. And I also love mentioning, when you get to campus and you connect with the Career Center, two of my 4-year long college roommate and one of my rowing teammates both got a job through that same interview process, and all three of us are still at Stanley Black & Decker. So the connections to the Career Center have placed, a lot of alumni, but at least two of my closest friends at a company that we're all working together and enjoying. So.
Thank you all so much for that. That was so cool to hear. And this kind of leads into my next question. What's the biggest thing that you learned at Washington College that you use in your job today?
Hard to pinpoint just one. There were so many different things that I learned. I would put it down to two, though. One being more technical and one being probably more social or spiritual, if you will. From a technical standpoint, from the moment you get on campus, they'll talk about how they kind of hone in on the importance of being able to interpret readings and being able to be a really good writer. And to be honest, that's the basis of a lot of business management careers, no matter what direction that you go in, because when you think about it, it sounds really simple right off the bat, because everyone knows, I know how to read, I know how to write, I know how to do what I need to do. But you'd be surprised at how many people can't even form a constructive email that needs to get a point across. And that's really essential in sales and marketing, I would say. So that's more of the tactical standpoint. That was something that I brought home to me and brought into my career that was extremely important. And from a more social and spiritual aspect, I would say they really drove home the importance of networking and being able to market yourself. A lot of my professors from the business management department, I think I was so lucky to have. Having that kind of, the whole community of Washington College, and particularly the business management department, really encourages you to, kind of spread your wings, put yourself out there, get uncomfortable and be comfortable being uncomfortable, if that makes sense. So really honing in on who you network with and the relevance of your career with all of those networking efforts was something that I found to be extremely important.
Like Trish said, there's so many things that I've learned at WAC that I've used in my day-to-day and in my career. And I think the biggest thing comes down to being able to critically think and think of problems in multiple ways outside of your own perspective. And one project that really stood out to me in teaching me how to do that was our senior thesis. So at Washington College, all seniors have a project you have to do in the business management department. There's 3 different options. I think you can do a case study on a business, you can do an independent research project, and there's a third one that I can't remember because it's been a while since I've been at WAC, but I chose the independent research project. And so taking an open book like that, where you can research anything you want to relating to business, figuring out what you want your project to be, how you're going to accomplish it, and then figuring out all of the tasks along the way to get you to that end result. I use that all the time, that critical thinking of thinking big picture. So the 30,000 foot view, or from an airplane, it's often called, as well as all the way down to the nitty gritty. What am I going to do today? What am I going to do this afternoon? And having all of the pieces work together to go from start to finish.
I love both of those answers. I'm going to try to add some more value here because I agree with them both. But the biggest thing WAC taught me I took into the real world was flexibility. And I mean, you both kind of said it already in terms of going outside of your comfort zone. But what I loved about a business education at a liberal arts school was that, yes, you're taking your core business classes and learning all that. But I took 2 classes of acting. I took a lab science, and not just because they were requirements, you know, some of them I actually really enjoyed. And all that stuff helped me learn to be flexible, and it taught me a desire to learn beyond what I was focused on, which was a business education. It pushed me to get a double major in Spanish as well. And that flexibility has helped me in my career immensely. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I started at Black & Decker in finance, and I did 5 years of corporate finance before I decided I think I'm ready and I want to try out marketing. Thankfully at WAC, you know, the business education is well-rounded. I had taken finance courses and marketing courses. And I think the acting 1 and 2 courses helped me speak my way into a marketing role, which has worked out so far. So it's the flexibility. It's the fact that you're going to go into the business management department, but that's not the only department you're going to touch on campus. You're going to get very well-rounded and come out very well prepared to learn quickly, no matter what kind of role you walk into.
All right, thank you all for answering that. I loved everything that you guys had touched on. And I have one more question to ask you, and then I will open it up to our audience today. So the last question I have to ask you is, how did you gain hands-on experience in the business field during your time at Washington College?
I would say that there was one direct hands-on experience and one slightly indirect. A direct experience that I was able to get with the Alex Brown program. So that was, if no one has heard of it before, it is every Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. And it was with Richard Bookbinder, I think his name was. So he runs his own asset management firm. And at the time, I think it was $500,000 that they gave us to flex with. So in the first hour, we would just review kind of what was going on in the market, like any current events that would be having an impact on what our portfolio was going to be. And then in the second hour, we would just kind of exchange ideas for the fund and how it would be constructed. So that kind of gave that hands-on investment experience. Indirectly, playing a sport was huge. It taught me probably almost as equal as I was taught in the business department. So, you know, the business department would tell you all of those technical things, like I was saying before. So just like how to operate in finance or marketing or consumer behavior, things of that nature. But playing a sport and getting involved, it doesn't even have to be a sport. It teaches you, you know, time management, the team aspect of being a part of something greater than yourself.
I also played a sport, and I totally agree, Trish. It's one of those things that it's hard to teach how to be a team unless you're part of a team. But it goes outside of sports as well. I was part of student government and had a ton of responsibilities there, working with multiple departments on campus and collaborating to find solutions to problems on campus and ultimately getting to results and trying to figure out how to get there. So that team environment is something that's so crucial to business, because businesses are teams, organizations are teams that work together towards those end goals. In addition to student government and sports, I also participated in the WAC to Wall Street, Washington College to Wall Street Financial Development Program, which was in the spring of my junior year is when I participated. And I think that might have been the first or second year they did that. And it was an amazing opportunity to go up to Wall Street in New York City, visit with alum, and really get your feet on the ground, meeting with executives and senior people within these huge companies. I think we met with someone at HSBC, someone from the Wall Street Journal, and News Corp. And it was just an amazing opportunity to physically go to those locations and talk with alum and figure out what life looked like in the real world within business. I also actually got to do a job shadow with an alum here in San Francisco at Silicon Valley Bank and figure out what banking looked like from a compliance perspective, from an investment management perspective, and also interned with one of our board members, Rebecca Corbin-Lee, with her firm up in Connecticut. And so having those opportunities to connect with alum were huge. And as I think both Trish and Ryan mentioned, the importance of networking and having that ability to touch base with other alums in the field that you may want to go into, and taking advantage of those opportunities was the best thing that I could have done.
All of my hands-on experience really came through the Washington College Career Center, which is just an invaluable resource once you get onto campus. I in my sophomore year, I had an internship at Benchworks, which is a marketing firm right in Chestertown. I could have walked there every day if I wanted to. I was lazy, I drove, but it's right down the street from campus, and it's one of the top marketing firms in the country, especially when it comes to pharmaceutical marketing. And Thad Bench, the owner, is very well connected with Washington College, and they've housed many WAC interns through the business department. And then one of the coolest experiences to come out of Washington College for me was, and this is the epitome of a small school experience. I don't know, I didn't go to a big school. Obviously, I went to WAC. I don't know if you can get this at a D1 school, but being a Spanish and business major, I wanted an internship that would allow me to do some Spanish speaking work. And the global education office, the business department, the Spanish department, and the career center, they all worked together. And they actually found me a software sales internship in Santiago, Chile. So for the summer between my junior and senior year, all these departments worked together, got me down to Chile. I was very thankful to be a part of the Douglas Cater Society of Junior Fellows on campus, which is a research group. And if you're a member of that society, that club, and you submit a research proposal, strong enough, and they approve it, they'll pay for your research proposal. So while doing an internship, I was doing a research on differences in the workplace in Chile versus the United States. That helped fund my trip down there. All the while I was getting real world experience. So, just an outstanding connection between all these different departments on campus that helped me get hands-on experience in both of my majors. So I can't say enough. When you get to campus, you got to use some of these resources like the Career Center, and whatever department you're working with, they'll be happy to help you, point you in the right direction for hands-on experience in your field.
Definitely, I couldn't agree more. And so now that we've had our first three questions, kind of, a great warm up, we are going to open it up to our audience. So please feel free to use the Q&A box to submit any questions you'd like our panelists to answer. And we'll go ahead and ask them live here. So, and we have some questions already coming in, which is awesome. So I'll go ahead and start. But please feel free, like I said, to submit those questions in the Q&A box. So did each of you plan on being a business major when you arrived at WC, or did your focus within business change throughout your education?
recent one first. I came in actually, no, not as a business major. I came in as, I think I was psychology, with a minor in Spanish was my original goal. And I took the first psych class. I forget what it was called. I think it was just Psychology 101. And I hated it, but it definitely pushed me to my limit. So I was thankful for taking the class, and I was thankful that I took it the first semester of my freshman year because I was able to learn right off the bat that wasn't something that I wanted to do. And what was great about that was how accessible our advisors were at that point, because I was able to be as candid as I wanted to be with that advisor. And tell her, I absolutely hated this class. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what to do with my life now. And they were able to just kind of digest whatever I was telling them. And I was a very crazy, anxious 18-year-old trying to figure out my life. But the bottom line is you don't need to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life when you're 18. It's just completely unrealistic. So I was able to figure it out, I think at the beginning of my sophomore year, that I wanted to do business. And I forget what class it was that actually changed my mind. I know it'll come to me when I start to think about it, but come sophomore year, I was able to figure out that it was business. I wanted to minor in Spanish.
I can follow up with that. I actually came in as a nursing student. Washington College has a really great nursing 3-2 program with a couple of schools on the East Coast. And so that was what brought me to Washington College. And I took I took biology and psychology and econ and maybe 1 or 2 other classes my freshman year. Got to the end of my freshman year and really liked my econ classes a lot more than the nursing classes that I was taking. So that kind of steered me in the business econ direction. And I ended up being a business major with a specialization in accounting and finance and a minor in econ when I entered as a nursing student. So very different path. But I wasn't concerned because every class that you take counts towards graduation. And so I knew that my biology and psychology courses were going to count towards my science requirement to get me to graduation. And so I didn't have to worry that I was going to go off course and not graduate in 4 years because I was making a huge switch from nursing to business, but was able to graduate with the major, the concentration, and the minor with no problems.
I'll answer just almost on the inverse of this, where I 100% planned on being a business student when I went to Washington College. And then as I took some of these other required classes to fulfill kind of some of the graduation requirements, as I took my first couple Spanish courses, as I took an econ course, I sat down with my advisor and said, I really like this. Is it realistic to add these onto my study path? And we all work together. So in a way, Washington College made me a huge nerd, I would say, because all of a sudden I was a one-track mind business major, and then I was kind of like, oh, I really want to learn that too. Like, how do I get there? So that's just the inverse kind of look at it. Is you might think I'm going to go in as a business major, and maybe you'll have the same experience as Audrey or Trish, and you'll change it from business to something else, which is very doable at WAC. But if you come in as a business major, just be prepared that you're going to also want to look into econ and maybe psychology if you want to go the marketing path. So a lot of opportunities.
I think that's so fantastic because so many times I hear from students who I've worked with in the admissions process, they come back and say, you know what, I learned something at Washington College that really surprised me. And whether it was I wanted to be nursing and then I pivoted, took a hard left and now I'm loving it, or I added something new that I didn't realize, or, I thought I had this idea that was like really, really great. And then I had it confirmed when I had that one professor and everything just kind of changed for me. And I love hearing those stories. So thank you all for sharing that, because I think it's so representative of what happens here. And I know, Ryan, you've touched on this a little bit with your acting courses, but which classes outside of your business courses do you think have helped you become a better business student, business person in general? That makes sense.
Yeah, let me just put a plug in for the drama department. I loved it. I mean, I think you had to take one arts class, and I chose acting. And Professor Summerfield and they just did an outstanding job, to the point where I auditioned for like some plays and stuff. So it wasn't just me fulfilling a course. I went all in on that. So yeah, I mean, acting is one that I would throw out there, just in terms of thinking on your feet, doing improv. That has helped me immensely as I work with, both happy and angry customers on a daily basis, and I have to come up with answers on the fly. So
I think for me, my biology and psychology classes, my freshman year actually, I think have been really helpful, because oftentimes in biology, there's a right answer. But in psychology, it can be very different. It can be, well, it depends on the situation if we go this way or this way. And it was actually the psychology courses combined with my econ courses that helped push me to go to grad school and study behavioral economics, which is a true mix of econ, psych, and stat. And that degree has even helped me so much in my career now, because with Deal Desk, I'm working with sales on negotiations with our customers, figuring out, okay, if we give them X price for our product, can I then have room to go down in future negotiations this round? But then also, what does that look like in 2 years or in 5 years when they're coming back for negotiations for a new contract? And so that psych combined with econ really continued to spark my interest. And it's something I use every day, multiple times an hour, because negotiation is the integral part of my job, and understanding how other people will approach similar situations and just having that psych understanding has been so crucial to my career.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Audrey was saying about psychology and biology. They're just tough. They're tough classes if that's not your forte, which it was not mine. But to be honest, I think every class outside of the business management program or curriculum is going to, or has benefited me in some ways. So anything that pushes you outside of your boundaries or pushes that envelope a little bit to push you out of your comfort zone is going to help you in the long run. So kind of going back to what Ryan was saying with acting classes, that kind of has a piece of my career in it too. So, with doing sales presentations, it kind of teaches you that that aspect of presenting in front of a group and again, getting out of that comfort zone. So I think there's an element to a certain degree of benefit from every class that's outside of the business management.
Right, thank you all. And then the next question I have that has been submitted is, what has been the biggest challenge you faced in your business management career?
I can start. I think so far, the biggest challenge that I had to overcome is kind of switching my career path from more of a investment reporting start at T Row to front of the house sales. So there is just a lot of logistics that go into going from just the reporting or corporate finance to being the face of the company. And that included, passing the FINRA examination, so 36, 37, 63, and 66. And then just getting up to speed on all of the different products that T. Rowe Price has to offer, and understanding each product and what strategy it's in, and understanding where it's going to fit in with advisors, and how we can properly market ourselves and our brand to advisors. So it was just a little bit of a curveball going from back to the house to front of the house, but it was the best decision I ever made.
I'll throw out that one of the biggest challenges for me has also been one of the biggest benefits Washington College has given me. And that would be, I feel like coming out and going immediately into a finance career, I didn't necessarily have immediately the hard skills that were required in terms of like really knowing Excel well, like Microsoft Excel, just being able to go out and blow out the kind of spreadsheets that my company was forcing me to, not forcing me, that's a bad word. They were asking me to prepare all these spreadsheets, right? But it's something that, so I would say for 2 or 3 days at the job, I was very stressed. Well, what Washington College did help me with is just quick learning. I mean, having taken the wide array of courses, I was able to pick up some of these, hard skills very quickly. And then that kind of helped me also transition from finance into marketing. The first couple of days in marketing, there's a lot I didn't know, but then I kind of remembered how Washington College was very typical at pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And I knew at that point how to adjust and how to learn quickly once you started feeling uncomfortable. So.
For me, the biggest challenge happened about 4 months into my career. I was in a position as a business analyst where I looked at a lot of data and put some reports together and kind of helped the business unit make decisions on what the future actions wanted to be. And I made a pretty big mistake that really impacted a ton of our customers. And I was very scared that I was going to get fired and that I was going to lose all credibility because I was a new college grad and just really wanted to make an impact at my company. But the thing that Washington College really helped me with there is pushing you outside of your comfort zone and owning up to what you're responsible for and knowing when things are out of your control and how to have control over what you can. You can control how you approach situations, how you resolve conflict and work with other people to kind of overcome obstacles. And so that for me, only being a couple months into my career, I was only about 23 when this happened, worked with my managers and worked with other teams to figure out, okay, this happened, it's in the past, what do we do now? And so even though this mistake happened just a couple months in, the ability to kind of overcome that huge obstacle and continue moving forward has made me more confident in my abilities because I know how to be comfortable with what I have control over and know how to work with other people when I'm looking at things that are outside of my control.
And I also have our next question for us. Can you talk about a time when a professor helped you develop your business skills outside of the classroom?
I would point to all the clubs and organizations that you would have an opportunity to be a part of. So at Washington College, when you're in a club, you're essentially running a small business. If you think of it, you have to market that club to other students. You actually have to present your budget request out to the Student Government Association, and to be able to run your events, you have to go and ask for the money and make a sales pitch as to why that event will benefit the campus community. And in most of the clubs I was a part of, especially the business clubs like Enactus, the advisors are very involved and they push you as if they're the CEO or someone on the board, and that has a vested interest in that club, right? And they want Enactus to be successful. So therefore, they're going to push you as someone who's running Enactus to get all the budget that's necessary to market the event so that they're successful. So I would say the involvement in those student clubs that really helped me develop my skills outside of the classroom, and the professors had a huge part in that as advisors who knew exactly what they were doing when they were asking some of these questions about the clubs.
I would say one particular experience that I had was with Professor Williams. He was my thesis advisor. And I remember when I got him, I was so nervous because he had a reputation of being like really hands-on and really strict with the way that you were handing in your thesis. And I was like, oh no, I can't believe that I got him. This is going to be awful. But he was so so invested in my future and my own development. And he wasn't even my professor at the time. He was just assigned as a thesis advisor. And it turns out, obviously, that he was being so strict and so critical of every piece of my thesis that he was doing it for my benefit. And at the time, it didn't feel like that. And I remember one of the times I just broke down. I had a complete mental breakdown, and I didn't know what I was going to do after graduation. And he had just like completely tore apart one of my thesis parts. And I was so defeated at the time. And he sat there in his office with me for at least 2.5 hours and practically rewrite this entire chapter with me. So the fact that he was willing to put that time and invest his own time into my development was something that resonated with me for a really long time.
Someone who I think he's technically an adjunct professor, Richard Bookbinder, who Trish mentioned at the very beginning of our panel, who runs the student investment fund on campus. I was very fortunate to win a spot to go meet the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett, who, if you guys don't know him, he's one of the wealthiest men in the world, one of the wealthiest people in the world. But I was able to go along with 3 classmates with Mr. Bookbinder and his wife to Omaha, Nebraska to go to a Berkshire Hathaway stockholders meeting. And the advice that I got on, I think it was like a 4-day trip or something, it was the most amazing opportunity to learn how huge businesses work and see the nitty-gritty details of, okay, Berkshire Hathaway is this huge company, but they own all these different brands. How do each of these brands contribute to the culture of Berkshire Hathaway? How do they contribute to the bottom line? How do you do your due diligence as an investor or as someone who's interested in buying a stock or even just participating in a brand culture? And that due diligence that you have to do and making sure you're looking at things from all angles, that is and it will be one of the most important things I've ever done in my career was this trip that I got to go do because of all of the advice that Mr. Bookbinder was able to give me and my classmates. So I think that was just the most amazing opportunity for me.
Thank you all for answering that question. And I'm so glad that Trish, you brought up your thesis because I have a thesis question to ask you all about. So would each of you mind sharing what your senior capstone experience was about and how maybe you also had thought of it and what that process was like for you?
I did a business analysis on M&T Bank. Their investment management or asset management section of their business. And I feel like if I were to go back in time, I probably would have chosen to do the presentation because I feel like, I ended up doing an analysis that was about 75 pages long. And then once it was done, it was done. To where if I had done more of a presentation aspect or approach, I would have gotten a little bit more out of building a business or building a business plan and being able to speak to it. But what it really taught me when I did the analysis was just how much goes into a company and how much math that goes into it and how much thought that goes into it and how you have to think about all these different aspects of succeeding within the business world.
My thesis was an independent research project I mentioned at the beginning, and I interviewed a ton of women in business who had reached management level at some point in their career, whether it was a few years after graduation and they were running their own, and they were a financial advisor running their own little business, or if they were VPs of huge companies. And my project was about how they got there and how their career paths looked and who helped them along the way. I think it was called Shift Happens, The Rise of Women in American Business Leadership, I think was the title. I worked with my advisor, Professor Harvey, so long on that title, but it was so great because I got to interview all of these amazing women from all over the country at different stages in their career, but all who were kicking butt in business. And I really wanted to be like them. So I got to do this huge project, do quantitative and qualitative analysis based on the interviews. I still have the poster that I presented. I think it's somewhere in my parents' garage somewhere, but I've definitely seen it recently. So it's something I'm really proud of.
So one of the benefits of being a double major is you get to knock out 2 majors with 1 thesis. One of the things I didn't think about was being a language major, I would have to translate my business thesis into Spanish. So I same topic on both, but one was written 60 pages in Spanish. But it was called Socially Bicultural, and it was a research study on how social media marketing. My thesis was that it's more effective to reach Latinos through social media marketing, depending on the brand, and that's tied to the Spanish major side, which the Spanish major is very literature and culture focused. That side was a cultural analysis on how they enjoy talking about their culture, their family, and that kind of connects them through social media, and how that can make it more powerful if they have a brand statement. So it was a very interesting research study. Not a lot of materials out there, so it left me scratching a little bit in terms of what I could use to support my thesis, but it was fun to do a research project that in depth.
And now I have a question specifically for Audrey. Did you pursue your master's right after graduating, or did you work first? And why did you decide to go for your master's?
Yeah, so I did my master's degree right after WAC. For me, the reason why I wanted to do it right after school was that right after Washington College, was I was pretty certain on getting into finance, but not finance. And so behavioral economics for me was the opportunity to look at careers involving finance, but not necessarily the investment path or the financial advisor path or the banking path. And so I figured for me, it was really important to go and continue my education in a very specific field that I was certain was going to get me to exactly where I want to go. And for me, after graduating with my master's degree, I got pretty close to where I wanted to go. And then now here I am 4 years after graduating Washington College, and I'm in what I think is probably my dream job at 26 years old. So I feel very fortunate to have taken the opportunity to go to grad school when I did, because I was really certain on where I wanted to end up. And I definitely wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't do that super, super tailored master's degree. And I got to go to England for 1.5 years, which was a bonus too.
I was going to ask you your tea preferences next, if you have.
Earl Grey with a splash of milk, no sugar.
Absolutely love it. So this is a question for everyone. What advice would you give business students at WC?
Oh, wow. Gosh. Okay. To break it down, we touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but networking is a huge part of being successful in your career. I would say it's at the very core, because it goes from, being able to exchange ideas, being able to vocalize what you're thinking and actually just hear it out loud in a conversation and then get somebody's feedback on it, but also being able to put yourself out there. Growing up in our demographic, a lot of people tend to hide behind technology. So being able to just have a conversation and hop on the phone rather than send an email or a text message honestly resonates with a lot of people. And then also understanding that corporate America is just a deep pool of information and a deep pool of change. So you never really know everything about your career, and you're never going to. You're never going to know everything that you're supposed to be doing or every single piece of information that you need to succeed. It's just impossible. You're continuously going to be drinking from a fire hose. So it's kind of finding that balance between vulnerability and confidence. So being able to leverage your vulnerability in new opportunities by asking thought-provoking questions, but also leveraging confidence and being able to flex your style and know what knowledge and traits that you already have that you've cultivated through Washington College or through previous experiences or through extracurriculars to push you to that next level.
Yeah, this would be not specific to business students at WAC, but just if you're going to Washington College, get involved in a club. If you play a sport, that's great. Do a club sport if you don't want to do varsity, right? But just get involved in something. I think Trish and Audrey and myself could all agree that the clubs that we were a part of at Washington College became the circle of friends that we spent most of our time with there, whether it was a sport, a fraternity, a sorority, whatever it was, that was the group that you ended up spending most of your time with. And it makes just a huge difference to have that group for socially. But then looking back, my resume came out with all these clubs that I was able to be a part of and looked a lot better than it had I not had any club experience, club leadership experience. So getting involved at WAC is such a critical thing, and there's so many opportunities to do so. But I promise you, it'll elevate your experience, far beyond what you could even believe.
I would also touch on the liberal arts education. There's a reason why Washington College is on your radar because of the opportunities that a liberal arts degree can give you. Ryan mentioned the acting classes and how the improv that he was able to do has really helped him in his job today. And I think taking advantage of the liberal arts education and courses outside of the business major only enhance your actual time as a business student. My favorite class was a religious architecture class that was taught by Professor Prudhomme. And that class taught me so much about international relations, international cultures, how history affects the way that we view things. And I wouldn't have never gotten that exposure if I didn't take this one class that ended up being my favorite class at WAC in a totally different department, completely unrelated to what I was actually getting a degree in. So I think just taking advantage of the liberal arts education and all of that can give you, it just benefits you long term.
Was all amazing advice. Thank you all. I have a question that has to do with internships. So did you have an internship while at WC? If so, what was it and how did it help you in your career?
I had an internship the summer going into my senior year at a hedge fund called Elevation LLC out of Jersey City, New Jersey. And I think what it most taught me was how to be a successful woman in business management. It's definitely hard to go into a male-dominated field, and being able to have confidence and have the preparation going into the internship that Washington College had given me was huge. I was the only intern, and I worked for 10 different men, I think between the ages of like 35 to 60. So a lot of different personalities, and a lot of information coming at me as being the only intern. So the way Washington College kind of prepped me for that was just like instilling the confidence in me that I knew what I was doing, that I deserved to be there, and having all of those previous skills that we talked about before. So time management, networking, being able to speak eloquently, being able to read and write, and be able to interpret instructions, interpret different readings that I was given was huge.
I had an internship in investor relations, which is a very unique field that I'd never heard of until one of our board members, Rebecca Corbin-Lurie, came on campus and was interviewing for her firm for the summer. And for me, it really exposed me that there's more to finance and investing than being an asset manager, than being a financial advisor. I think for me, having that exposure that I can touch money, I can be a part in helping like money grow, but not actually have to be the one pressing the buttons into, I want to make this trade, I want to put all these accounting spreadsheets together, really opened my eyes to all the things that are peripheral to a traditional finance path as a career. So that really influenced just the opportunities that were out there. But then it also influenced me in my, or it helped me in my career because I did a lot of transcribing of investor interviews, which then gave me the framework for my thesis, where I did all these interviews with women, had to transcribe them, analyze them, put a project together, which then has helped me in my career because I have the opportunity to kind of deep dive into the conversations I have with people every day and figure out the small things that help me achieve the big things. And so in that way, it's been instrumental in my career because I wouldn't have had the opportunities that I've had without that initial opportunity as an investor relations intern, seeing all of the peripherals that can still be connected to something I really enjoy, but are playing to my strengths of working with people and problem solving.
Yeah, I'll just add that for me, it was a lot of learning how to interact with clients in a real environment and being in an office environment. I'll just joke and say, like, in my first role, when I was asked to print out, 50 slide decks for a quarterly financial review. My first role at Stanley Black & Decker, I was so happy that I learned how to use like an actual office place printer in one of my internships. But there's so much more than that. It's being in the office, it's interacting with clients, right? Like just being professional, knowing how to speak in a meeting confidently. A lot of that kind of real world workplace stuff is where you take what you learn in the classroom, rubber meets the road, because you're actually in an office and there's a business depending on kind of your performance. So
that's so fantastic to hear about all these experiences that you all have had. And as a last question, we have a very special one. And so this evening, to finish off, could each of you tell me why you chose Washington College when you were doing your college search?
I think I visited about 15 different colleges up and down the East Coast, and then one, I think it was in Ohio. And every single visit, I was bored to tears, except for with Washington College, which is funny because it was in February, so it was freezing still. And it was just me, my parents, and our tour guide. And immediately upon stepping on campus, and this is probably going to sound like a broken record, but once you step on campus, I was pretty much sold. The sense of community is just something that you can feel without even being around anybody. It was a beautiful day. It was like 35 degrees, but even so, it was something like the energy that you feel walking on campus is just irreplaceable. We got a great tour. The tour guide was absolutely outstanding, and it was, I'll never forget the day, honestly. So once she was able to tell us about all the opportunities, like from business to what Audrey was mentioning about nursing to education, it just, every single word, we were kind of just hanging on it because every single word she had to say was just positive. And you can tell she really meant it. And then every experience after that, the follow-up with the advisor and continuously having conversations with people, with alumni, with current students, everything was positive. So in addition to just having a great campus feel, the athletics department was another thing that attracted me. I loved the coaches on the softball team. I loved the girls on the team. So everyone I met, it just gave me a positive feel.
yeah, you're right, Trish. It's going to sound like a broken record. Once I walked on campus, it just felt right. Something was there. Um, I'm about to sing the Beauty and the Beast song. The Beauty and the Beast song. There must be something there that wasn't there before. That's what I felt like. I have a 4-year-old, so forgive me for knowing the lyrics to that song. But that's what it felt like. After I had toured other campuses and I walked on to Washington College campus, it was just like this. Something feels right here. And the thing that spoke most to me was the class sizes that they kept advertising and talking about. I mean, just my personality type, I wanted to be one of 12 in a class, and I wanted the opportunity to really get to know my professors, have them know me, and have us kind of work together to get to that ultimate graduation day. And that I got that and more from Washington College. It was just an outstanding experience. So.
For me, I hadn't heard of WAC until I was actually being recruited to Goucher by my eventual head coach. So I was visiting Goucher, put in contact with the assistant coach, who then became the head coach at Washington College, but then continued to recruit me to Washington College. And I figured, well, I really liked this guy. I wonder why he made the move as a career change. Then I learned more about the school and the opportunities. And for me, being a volleyball player was only one aspect of who I was as a person and who I was going to be as a student. And I wanted to make sure I went to a place where I could explore all of those parts of myself. Similar to Ryan, I was in improv club. I was in a play my freshman year. I got to be a varsity athlete. I was involved in student government. I got to be in a sorority. I actually got to work as a tour guide for admissions for a couple years and work with our alumni office. And so for me, it was the opportunity of the opportunities that were there. That it wasn't just the education in the classroom, but it was all of the things about being a student of Washington College, being part of a family, knowing that no matter if you hang out mostly with athletes, a little bit of everyone, mostly Greek people, it didn't matter, because you were all part of a Washington College family. And for me, the family part of it and having the opportunity to pursue all of these opportunities were what really, really sold me on the college. And as both Trish and Ryan have said, it's been like the thing that really launched me in my career.
Well, thank you all so much for sharing that and for sharing all of your incredible answers tonight. It's so amazing hearing about this program from the people who've actually gone through it and graduated and have gone on to do such successful and incredible things. So thank you all for joining us. And I also want to give a special shout out to our audience tonight. Thank you guys for joining us this evening. If we didn't get to your question, don't worry, we'll be in touch with an answer as long as we have a name associated with your question. And I hope everyone else has a wonderful evening. Thank you guys so much for joining us.